Hey y'all, and welcome to Geospatial Experiences. I'm your host, Melissa Mayo, and I'm an Esri engineer on the product team. This podcast focuses on the application of geographic information. Let's go on a journey together with some of my amazing coworkers, along with Esri customers, partners, and distributors who are doing really cool work in the field of GIS. We're here today with Hussein Nasser, Senior Product Engineer on the Geodata team, and specifically a key member of the Utility Network Project. Hi, Hussein.
Hi, Melissa. How you doing?
Doing well. I'm so excited that you're here with me today. I can't tell you. I have been so thrilled to get you on the podcast. So
yeah, I think you reached out like a month ago.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you figured all the technicalities of this. I mean, this is like the third episode you guys are recording, right?
Yeah, we've recorded a couple, and I've got to kind of figure out what order everybody's going to be in. But yeah.
I'll go second. That's fine.
Well, Hussein, you're famous, so we had to get you in on the podcast for sure.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about what's your journey with GIS been like? How did you get here?
That's a very interesting question. I didn't really pursue GIS per se. I think just like anything in life, opportunities kind of come your way, and it is having an open mind and heart really to really grasp and not judge what comes to your mind. And this happened, I think, in 2004. I studied computer science back in my home country, Bahrain. So I didn't really study anything GIS, but it's a pure computer science. And my uncle is actually, he owns the Esri distributor in Bahrain. So, Of course, he knows everything about GIS, and I needed an intern job. And so he got me, all right, here's this thing that's called GIS. Try it, see if you like it.
That's awesome.
So I started the job in maybe 2004, late 2004. That was a long time ago, almost 20 years now. We think about it, because we're in 2024. And it's one thing led to another, and I'm here. There is a lot that happened. We can discuss all that. But essentially, I didn't pick GIS. It's just happened.
GIS picked you, right?
Yeah, maybe you can say that. Yeah, but it's a very interesting field, and I always say that it's geography, and I didn't really major in geography or anything. But at its core, GIS is information technology, and that's where maybe 80% of what we do in Esri really here is about technology and databases and geodatabases. And then I would say 20% is GIS. But of course, we have a lot of other teams focuses on that. But in particular, what we do in development and geodatabase team, we focus more on the database aspect of things. So
Well, I think it's amazing that you can take the computer science background and really, this podcast is focused on applying GIS and geography and kind of applying concepts across the board in different ways. And so you're taking your computer science background and applying that and making it so useful to the geodata team and being able to apply it and kind of build that foundation for the GIS to run off of and work and be able to access the database and the data faster, quicker, in different ways. I mean, you're a classic example of applied geography here.
Absolutely. The amount of problems that GIS solves is really tremendous, and then technology kind of enables these workflows to be more efficient and effective. It's really interesting. And then going through what customers are we build technology, but when we go to the user conference and the Dev Summit and seeing what people do with the technology is just really amazing. I'm really getting inspired, but it's all right, you use this thing this way. I never thought about it.
It is really cool to go to the conference and see what they're actually doing with it, because we can be here and think about how we can envision for ourselves how it might be used or what might work or what we can do, but the customers and the users just do amazing things that we could never dream up.
Yeah, it's amazing how much time you put in planning and thinking one particular thing will go your way or as you planned, but it's almost never does. It's used in a very fantastically almost like a fireworks. It's like nature. It's everything that happens is completely not really organized and planned. It's just like fireworks, like everything happening in a very unexpected way, and that's what makes it interesting.
Very organic, to use a term.
Organic, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Organic, yes. That's my boss' favorite word.
I was about to say our boss would love us right now,
Exactly. Organic, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we got him a mug that says organic on it one time. Yeah, it was
that's awesome. Yeah. He needs a poster for his office.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's do that.
So tell me, how long have you been at Esri, and what is it like working here?
Okay, so I came to the U.S. In 2015, I would say. Yeah, 2015. So, man, it's like almost 8 years now. Been in Esri in the same team for 8 years. Been working on this technology that's called the utility network. And it's amazing how much that technology grew since I came in, and how many iterations we went through until we kind of nailed it, I think. So I've been working on, specifically we started on the utility network, the project, designing a solution that would fit the customer's workflow. And that's the challenge, really, knowing what the customers really do. And then when we ship something, it's always almost different, because one customer will use the technology this way, but we can always do what we think is the best, but how the customers actually use the technology is completely different. Sometimes it lines up with our thinking, sometimes it doesn't, and we adjust, and we adjust, and we adjust, and then technology grew, and we think, we need another piece, so let's design this piece. So I've moved projects, if you will. So we're still in the same geodatabase / utility network, but I moved in to the runtime aspects of that, to the JavaScript. I dabbled in web aspect. We built the JavaScript API, started that project. We started the runtime aspects of things, kind of building the SDK for the utility network. We went back and built this technology. It's called attribute rules in the geodatabase as a core concept. So yeah, it's been exciting. Different project. That's what I love about Esri, really. You're never bored because there's always new things you're going to work on, and challenging things of all things. It's just never comes a day that is a dull day here. You're always having interesting problems. And again, it comes back of this unexpected organic nature of the customers we have, how they use the software, and then realizing that, they're using it in this manner. So we really need to kind of tailor our expectations to that requirement, to these requirements. And this leads to really interesting problems. We're dealing with one right now.
One thing about Esri that I've noticed since I've come here is the people on the teams who work here are amazing. You included. I've been so impressed with not just the knowledge, but the willingness to work on these problems and attack them and really try to do something that's going to be beneficial for the customers. It's just a really unique group of people. There's a mix of people from all over the world, really, that bring in different perspectives and personalities and outlooks and views, and just being able to look at what can we do to improve the customer experience, what can we do to improve how the technology is working and running. I've just really enjoyed getting to have conversations and interactions with the team members too.
Absolutely. One of the things that keeps me motivating to stay in Esri is actually the people here. We have kind of a spectrum of people, from people who've been here for over 25 years old, so rich with experience. We have new, fresh minds, and that kind of builds like a balance. So you have new ideas. Any ideas that you proposed, you would think that, it will always be challenged, and no, will always be refused. No, actually, it's being adopted, thought about, reasoned about, and then everybody is listened to here. Everybody gets listened to. You can always contribute. That's what I love about this place. There's like a rich kind of experience. But they don't yell at you with this experience. It's we're better than you. Never. It's always like, oh yeah, let's hear what you think. Mm-hmm. We did it this way, but maybe it's wrong. Right? We have been doing this for 20 years, but maybe there is a better way. Maybe there is a better way. Mm-hmm. So there is always an openness to discuss ideas and contracts that have been there for years. And that's what I love about this. It's always an open discussion. And even if you don't understand something, people are always willing to help, and that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And as you said, right, if everyone is willing to listen and help, and that's what I like about this. Yeah.
I think it's neat how you can walk down the hall and there'll be little groups of people kind of collaborating around or kind of clustered around an office, or maybe they'll go grab a conference room or something and start kind of brainstorming out and thinking through and kind of working out a problem that's come up, and they're contributing to each other. I mean, it could be, like you said, the legacy people with the new people just all kind of working through it, talking it out.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And most of the projects and ideas kind of start from hallway conversations. Mm-hmm. Just I would walk to, someone's office, and I'd ask him a question, then someone else joins, and then says, oh, actually I've seen this problem before happen to me, maybe if we try it this way. And then conversations organically grew, and then a lot of projects are born from these hallway conversations. Of course, when COVID happened, this doesn't happen as often, because as we became asynchronously disconnected, no longer face to face, but as we are coming back to work now, this is starting to happen more and more often now.
How critical do you think those conversations are to just all the work that we do, the product development, project, moving through just all the things? How critical do you think those kind of conversations are to generating the innovation and the creative juices? Mm-hmm. You tracking with me? I'm trying to get my words out, and I'm struggling today, but yes.
Absolutely. It's interesting, because if I learned anything, it's that you can never force an idea or force creativity. It's never forced. It just happens, it's in the ether, and if you're willing, if you're open enough, the idea flows in you. If you're closed-minded and you think things has to go a certain way, and you don't really get it, And it happens. It starts always organically with a curiosity. I'm curious. Why is this way? Why is this tree looking this way? Why is it that it takes 3 seconds if I click this button to open, but why is it faster the second time? So it starts with an honest, innocent question, and it grows slowly. And it depends, of course, on the person asking this question, how interested they are, if they are really interested. And they have to lack fear, because fear that's another problem we have, especially with newcomers. They are free to speak up, because, what am I doing here? I just graduated and I don't have any experience, and these guys have over 30 years of experience. What do I have to add to the conversation? And I think that's a wrong mentality to have, because if you see something, then there is a spark of interest. That's something. It might not amount to anything. But if you pursue it, you will get satisfied at the end. You might get an answer. You might not get an answer that satisfies you. but that pursuing that is the start of where ideas and, as you said, the creative juices flow. But as long as you're forcing, all right, today I'm gonna wake up in the morning and I'm gonna produce 30 creative ideas. That doesn't happen.
Well, and just starting the conversation, asking those questions, being curious, even if it doesn't pan out where you think it's going to.
Right.
You don't know what's going to trigger for the next person or the person you're talking to or the person they talked to about the conversation they had with you that they then circle back to. It can be that kind of ember that starts the fire.
That's a great word,
off.
ember. Yeah, it is. And if you do something, if you start a conversation, it's like an ember, and that kind of starts up another, idea in someone else. So, all right, I'm actually interested. The way you might not be affected, the way you say it, you might not actually have the idea, but the way you say it, you inspire someone else, and that straight kind of creates a chain of reaction that comes back to you essentially.
I think too, Esri, thinking about coming to Esri is such a big deal, especially for people who haven't been here for 20 years, for the newer folks coming in.
Yep.
Esri's so established, and coming to work for Jack, that's a huge deal. That's amazing.
It is.
And so that can, I feel like for some people who are in these conversations, there can be a little bit of hesitation to speak up, like you mentioned, a little bit of fear from that angle.
Yeah.
But that really is what's going to hold them back if they don't take that initiative, if they don't just go ahead and own it and say, hey, I'm curious about this, I want to learn more, because that makes them a better person for Esri, that makes them be a better employee, that makes them learn more, so.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I definitely want to encourage people to not have that fear.
The worst thing that can happen is you get embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
But here you are, you're still alive, aren't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? You get embarrassed, and that's it. You move on, right? That's how life is.
My mom says they can't take your birthday, right?
Yeah. The problem is, and I'm not saying that I'm the best at this. I'm still struggling with this, but I think we have like a fear of our emotions. It's just a kind of, we call it in programming, it's a recursive function, and with no base condition. So programmers might understand what I mean. Is you call a function and that function calls itself, but because that function calls itself, it starts the same, it adds another stack frame in the stack, and then calls itself again and calls itself again until you run out of Stack Overflow. That's basically when you get really emotional. And with no base condition, you'll never exit that loop. You have to say, hey, if I'm reached here and the value is X, exit. Just quit. Don't call yourself again, right? And I think...
Break the cycle, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the cycle. And I know we're going all over the place in the discussion, but I think that's where kind of emotions start. It's just we're afraid of being afraid of being afraid of being afraid of being afraid. But allow it. It's just like, all right, just speak up, and what's going to happen? All right, you're going to get embarrassed. All right, okay. 3 seconds, done. All right.
No one's going to remember it after the conversation's over, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. But you said it, right? You said what you have in mind, and it might be of value, it might not be of value, but keeping it inside will always eat at you.
Mm-hmm.
If only I said that. That's another emotion, regret, right? So you keep in this kind of loop. Yeah. So break that recursion. Have a base condition. Quit that, and then that's a kind of advice for anyone. It doesn't have to be Esri, right? Any job, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of true to any career. If you're new to a job, it depends on the personality of the person as well.
But be curious too about that job. Be curious about what's going on and ask good questions, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I don't know if you can force that, Melissa. Mm-hmm. Forcing curiosity is not something you can. Like you're either curious or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you really look at something, so wow, I'm actually curious, and now you can actually pursue it. But it's very hard to actually force curiosity, right? Because it shows that you're not really curious. You're just acting, right? I don't know, might be wrong, but it's just interesting.
So I mentioned earlier that you're famous, right? Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that, but
Tell me about your YouTube channel.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about it a little bit.
Sure. It started in 2014, and well, I had after 2014. That's like 10 years. After 10 years in GIS, I had a lot to say. I was like, a lot to say. I know this, and I know people want this knowledge, so I want to teach this thing. And there's this thing that's called YouTube. It's just starting out. It's like, maybe I'll just start a channel and start uploading to YouTube. And of course, I didn't know anything about video recording. I didn't know anything about anything. But this is, and I was kind of, if I remember correctly, I was, what's the word I'm looking for? When you want to do something, but you're procrastinating? Yeah, procrastinating, yeah. And I was looking for, I don't have a mic. I don't have the right speaker. I don't have this. I don't have that. I have that. So, and until one day I said, you know what? It's just let's use the built-in mic and built-in speaker on my old laptop. I just recorded in Arc Objects back then. That's an API that we have in Esri. So I recorded an Arc Object API and then just winged it. It was fun. That's how I started. GIS, just making one video, turn to another video, turn to another video, turn to another videos, and yeah. And when I started, I didn't really look for views or anything like that. I just wanted to share my knowledge, what I know, and that's how I started. And
since then, you've authored 3-4 books, something along that?
Yeah, so that video, the first few videos that I made attracted attentions. I should mention that I also had a blog back then that I also write on that. And between the books, the blogs and the video, publisher from the UK reached out to me, said, hey, there's this GIS is blowing up everywhere. We want you to write a book about it. You seem to know what you're talking about. So again, I said, I don't know anything about writing books, because I never wrote a book before, but my wife convinced me, said, just do it. What are you going to lose?
Quit the procrastinating, right?
Exactly. Quit it. Quit the procrastinating. Just do it. I think the problem, thinking back, I think we overthink everything. You know? It's just because there's always this dialogue that what's in it for me? And I think that's a kind of race to the bottom of a question. What's in it for you? It's like, if you play the piano, what's in it for you? If you play the guitar, what's in it for you? There's nothing. It's just the fun of playing, the fun of mountain climbing. It's just for the fun of mountain climbing. There's nothing for you, right? Of course, I wish I said that to my earlier self, but essentially, it's just, all right, let's just go there. And I started, so I went to coffee shops. That's where my inspirations comes in. I just sit in the coffee shop and then start writing. Yep. I don't know if you have this in the States called shisha, which is hookah. So we go to the coffee shop and then smoke hookah, and then that's how I basically write my first book. It was like full of hookah, right? Because there's a lot of coffee shop back in Bahrain, like hookah shops, So yeah, that's how I did it. I don't smoke anymore, but yeah, that's how the inspiration kicks in back then.
You tickle me, Hussein. Well, you're very well known too. I mean, you have people come up to you at conferences who follow your YouTube channel, who follow you on LinkedIn, who are very committed to your following, and they're all about you. Yeah, they come up to other people and are excited when other people know you. It's like, ooh, when people get to present or when people are around Hussein, folks know you then. Like, I'm just waiting to be in that circle, Hussein. I just want to be known for knowing Hussein. That's what I want. That's when I'll know I have made it.
It's funny because I really didn't meant to any of this happening, right? I would just make my own videos, write when I feel like writing, and people get inspired by what I do, and it's interesting that what I do comes with a cost, because not everybody will like what you have to say, so you have to get used to, especially in an online world, people feel encouraged to say whatever they have in their mind.
Keyboard warriors.
Oh,
you
yeah.
hide behind them.
Yeah, exactly. And still struggling with that. I'm not gonna lie. It's just it's interesting, and just reading the comments, seeing the effect on people on both sides. It's like, all right, some people like it, some people don't, and it's just interesting to have all of that. It's funny because nobody ever will come to your face and say, "Hey, I don't like your content," but
keyboard warriors, they can hide behind it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, I think what you do is definitely important. I know a lot of people get a lot of good out of it. I know there's so many people out there who find your content so useful and so helpful. So don't let the ones on the other side of the fence discourage you from continuing to do what you do, because that's part of what makes you, Hussein. That's part of what makes you amazing.
Absolutely, so. I think you're right, and I think this advice, Melissa, apply to anyone, not just me. Right? Like listen to, I wouldn't say like listen to the good thing and ignore the bad, but instead of just doing either or, just do you, as cliche as that might sound these days, but really just do it, as Nike say. Just go ahead and do what you has. Like, I think you used the word ember. There's like this small ember. Just feed it a little bit. Just follow it. See where it goes. It's all interesting at the end of the day. That's what we get out of life, interest.
This podcast was kind of that way too, because we thought about it, and then it was like, well, some people aren't going to like it, but some people might really like it, and so there's going to be people on both sides of it. But I think what we're doing is important. I think we're sharing important stories. I think getting people the opportunity to be able to hear from people like yourself is important, and some of the other guests we're going to have. So, for me, I'm going to listen on both sides. I know there's going to be feedback on the positive and the negative side, and I'm just going to try to track down the middle and just do what I feel like is important for the people listening and for the customers out there.
I agree with that. Just listening to feedback is also important. It's kind of it's a slippery slope, because the feedback, of course, you need to improve at some points, but that comes at a cost of your what you really want, versus what the challenge becomes if you started to do things for other people specifically, not for you, and that kind of slippery is a slippery slope, because now you shifted your mentality from, hey, I'm just singing here, I'm just playing the piano, to no, I'm actually doing this to make that guy happy because he or she gave me that feedback, and I really want to follow that feedback, because if I follow it, then she's going to be happy, and maybe others will be as well. That's a slippery slope. I mean, it's always, at the end of the day, it's balanced. Not saying I'm not following feedback, but it's just following. It's like a compass, following what you feel gravitated towards, not for ulterior motives per se.
Kind of tracking on your true north for
north. Absolutely.
For what's important that you're trying to share.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Exactly.
So Hussein, you have been super successful. You've been on stage at the developer conference in the past, if I recall correctly. You've done quite a few live training seminars. You have really a wide range of experience talking about Esri technology. We've chatted about the YouTube channel and the blogs and the writing and everything.
Right.
So in your opinion, how do you communicate with our customers, and how do you make your approach? I mean, you are one of the most popular blog writers on the team. You are one of the more popular just personalities in the group too when you go and present. How do you resonate with the customer so well?
I think it comes down to, being at the listening. I think all comes down to that. While we might think we listen, but we really don't, Customers tell us their problems in plainly, but we rarely listen to them. And then the ability to just actually listen to what they're saying and then going from there, right? Not imposing what you have as a knowledge on them. Says, hey, don't do that this way, do it this way. But actually just like, all right, we're trying to do this. Why? Why is this done this way? And then you slowly, as you start asking more questions, you'll slowly see that you are in with them in their office, right, in their daily routine, and you're walking in their shoes. And that kind of gives you an idea of what they are trying to do, and it kind of reflects at the end of the software you're building. Just because it's important, sometimes we try to solve problems that don't exist, unfortunately, right, as opposed to actual problems that the users face. There might be a bug that users, annoyed by, but it's not really a big deal. But just solving that problem saves them like 20%, of a wasted time, and it just adds up. So things like that you only see when you actually, listen to the customer and put yourself in their shoes, and that's basically, I think that's how I do it. I try, at least.
I think that's really important to, from the customer perspective, because more recently I was a customer, obviously. To have someone listen to you when you're sharing, even, like you said, it may be something really small as far as the bug goes to a developer, but for a customer it's huge, especially if it's something they're doing repetitively over and over and over again. It adds up when you listen to them and really learn from their perspective and hear what the experience is that they're having. And then they feel like they've been heard. They feel like what they're saying is important. It just feels good to have someone listening to you as a customer, particularly from a big company like Esri, right, where you're like, who's going to listen to me? Who's going to be paying attention? Is there anyone really getting my trouble tickets? And by the way, yes, there's a whole team of people getting the trouble tickets and working through them. But if you can make them, feel like they're important, and they are important. Their feedback is important to us. I think that's critical.
It's absolutely critical, especially that's why we have the user conference. And I would say the user conference, maybe 80% of the questions we get are solvable with the software without actually changing anything. It's just changing the way you interact with the software as a customer. Telling them, oh, by the way, you can do it this way, this way, this way. Right? Oh, thank you. I never knew this tool existed. Right? Or especially in attribute rules, Arcade is just a very versatile language. So you can write so many things and do so many things in so many ways, right? So capabilities to actually do things in attribute rules are actually way more there. So that's why I have a lot of questions with attribute rules. Like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Well, some of them can be answered. Some of them actually require us to go back to the whiteboard and think it through.
You mentioned Arcade. Can you talk a little bit about Arcade? That was on my list of things to ask, and you're segueing into it, Hussein. So tell us a little bit about the history of Arcade. I feel like that's something people may not be super aware of.
Yeah. So as we, ArcGIS is a very versatile piece of software, and what makes it so is the ability to customize. I think Jack and the founders has kind of emphasized that point, that while you have a software, you can actually write whatever you want on top and have these add-ins and extensions you can extend your work, because we know that we will never be able to achieve with COTS software everything that customers want. So we want the ability to kind of customize, write code, slight code here and there to change the behavior of the workflow. So we picked, first, started with VB6, if I'm not mistaken. VBA, actually, Visual Basic for Applications. And then it slowly grew to other languages, C# and others, and Python entered the mix. And now Python is very popular, right? Mm-hmm. With Python,
you can do all the rage.
Oh, of course, all the rage. And the problem with Python is you can do so much with it, so much that it's actually scary, because you can write to disk, can send HTTP traffic, can delete files, hook into your network card, listen to Bluetooth. You can do so much stuff with Python because it's a very versatile language as it is. So we needed something a lighter weight, controllable script that is the ArcGIS scripting language. And so we took JavaScript. Of course, JavaScript is as versatile as Python, that you can do so much with it, and we kind of stripped it down into very basic, fundamental things, functions. And that becomes Arcade. And it's everywhere. It's in your mobile phone, it's in the web, it's in the geodatabase, it's in the calculate field profile, it's select by attributes, in a pro, it's everywhere. So that's the language that we felt safer to put everywhere. I mean, there might be other reasons to pick that, but I think that's one of the reasons that we picked this language. And we can improve, and we've been improving and adding functions. And people ask that. And that's why we picked this language, and we're building it from the bottom up slowly. Being very careful with the features we add to it, keeping the security of the users as one of our first important things, and of course performance and other things. So yeah, that's Arcade, and we chose it as another vehicle in attribute rules as well, which is another scripting things you can do with the geodatabase. But yeah, pop-ups everywhere. If you think about now, you slowly see that Arcade is really everywhere. And that's the main reason why we did it. We cannot really put Python in the geodatabases. It's really scary sending a Python. Someone send you a Python script, you're really wary of running it locally on your machine. You have to be careful with that. Yeah, so that's basically Arcade.
So what is your role with utilizing Arcade and building it up and improving it for users and improving how it integrates with the software and the technology?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. So the Arcade, we have an Arcade committee really locally, and a lot of team leaders from multiple teams, meet weekly to discuss Arcade, to discuss bugs, features, things, enhancements we want to make. And I'm just one member of the community, the committee to actually improve Arcade. But we have a lot of team leads across all other teams, because as I said, right, Arcade is everywhere. And because it's everywhere, it's on the web, it's on the enterprise, it's an online, ArcGIS Online, it's in Pro, it's in the runtime, JavaScript, APIs, everywhere. And as a result, we have various amount of teams, improving the language, adding to it, fixing bugs, fixing things where that doesn't work. And so we're keeping to improve this language and keeping it better, making it better.
That's amazing. So what would be something important for an early adopter or user or someone who's new to Arcade? What would they need to know? What would be important for them to know or learn right off the bat?
Well, Arcade is very similar to JavaScript. Syntactically, it's identical to JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, you're good. You're good with Arcade. That being said, you still need to know the functions of arcade that doesn't exist in JavaScript. Things like feature set by name, feature set by relationship class, a buffer, things that are GIS-y, that doesn't exist by default in JavaScript and Python. You can add libraries, but by default these things exist. So yeah, knowing the built-in, I would start with what you're trying to do. And we have a great community on GeoNet asking a lot of great questions, and we have a lot of community members actually answering those, including Esri employees and contributing to those. But yeah, we're making arcade better, and to start with, just learn the basics of Java, of arcade, and it becomes like the rest of the thing becomes easier. And we understand that not everybody is a programmer, so we're making, at least from an attribute rule perspective, we've heard users that, hey, I used to do this, it's easier in ArcMap, but in Pro I have to learn this arcade thing. So we're building a better, easier user experience in Pro to help you write arcade, like a helper, if you will.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
I'm sure people will love that.
Oh yeah, this was the number one requesting thing. I think it was the user conference or Div Summit. I can't remember. It might have been user conference. A lot of people asked for that.
So you're also on the transaction team, right? And it's focused on, correct me if I'm wrong, improving the performance of editing geodatabases and things of that nature. So can you just tell us a little bit about it and what your efforts are on there?
Right, yeah. So, as I mentioned when we first started the podcast, is we're in the geodatabase team. So, databases is at the core of our, daily work. So we work with many databases: Oracle, SQL Server, Postgres, DB2, SAP HANA, and we support a lot of databases. And then what comes on top of it is something called geodatabase. And the geodatabase has these features that enables users to do their daily work. We have concept of domains, subtypes, field aliases, and features, attribute rules. All of this lives in the geodatabase. Because databases like SQL Server doesn't know what an attribute rule is, right? We add these features on top of that. And because of that, transactional semantics is one of the critical things when it comes to database technology. Like, if I am creating certain number of features, of updating certain number of rows between many tables, it needs to happen in database speak. We call this atomically. That means it's either happening or never happens. We cannot have you update half of the tables and then fail in the middle and then leaving the database in a corrupted state. So transactional semantics is very important. So as in the transaction team, we deal specifically these days, we're working on branch versioning, which is our versioning model, and we're improving it. We're finding the challenges when it comes to large data sets and high concurrency, environments, like users editing, a lot of web users starting editing at the same time. We're getting some contention in certain areas, so we start asking, why are we getting these contentions? And this requires a lot of deep knowledge in database engineering. So that's why the members of this team are really adept in database engineering. Like, all right, why is it that when I start editing this table, I am user A, all of a sudden user B is being blocked, right? Why is this happening? So this is kind of the concept of locking that's happening at the database level. Locking is good in certain, doses, as they say. You want to lock to prevent people overriding their changes, but you don't want a lot of locks which produce a lot of weights. Mm-hmm. That's another problem.
So they can be useful, but not too many.
Yep, mm-hmm. Yep. So we have to, we're trying to control. Sometimes we don't really need to lock in this case. Or sometimes I want to avoid these blocking scenarios. So we're trying to improve the performance by removing unnecessary blocking scenarios and keeping those that are necessary for the briefest amount of time. And that's the trick here. Keeping like a heartbeat where we're going to acquire a look, you do your thing, and then quit very quick. And we're improving that, essentially.
So as a customer, I would have never thought about you guys digging in and thinking about something at a transactional level. Like I would have never thought about there being so much involved and how much is involved in exploring and experimenting with it and trying to make that better and really digging down. And of course, my background is not programming and computer science, and so probably that's part of why I would have never thought about it. Yeah. But just talking to y'all and learning more about it, it's amazing how you guys have to really dig down to that interactive level, to that transactional level, to try to improve things. It's not just the big view and the big flashy stuff that we might think about as far as being important for improving it. It's down to these minutiae little tidy details of literally how long does it take for this, how many seconds, how many nanoseconds does it take for this transaction to occur, right? I mean, you guys have to get down to that level.
Absolutely. I mean, users are not aware of these things. It's very deep internal details, but it has a kind of, I think they call these leaky abstractions, where they don't know, the users don't know they exist, but they do, and they manifest and they leak back to the user in a form of undesirable behavior, such as either a weight or this hourglass, or a crash, or perhaps undesired long freeze. A freeze, the application will freeze, or even certain corruption in the worst case scenarios. Like, why am I seeing this row? I thought I deleted it. So these cases where we're trying to follow and fix as much as possible. That's what we do in the transaction team. Yeah.
We hate our leaky abstractions, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. We love it.
All right, Hussein, tell me about your vision for the future of GIS and your vision for the future of your work. Ooh. It's the hot seat question, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Putting your feet to the fire on this one.
I don't know. I no longer... I might have used the concept of goals and vision in the past. I no longer have that. I these days I live my life on a day-to-day basis and follow whatever inspires me today. If you will, the ultimate goal is efficiency. That's my driver, if you will. I like to build efficient software. And when I say efficient, I mean, how can I do the same amount of work, but with less resources? And because that translates to performance, that translates to money, that translates to, time saved and so on. So that's like kind of my North Star, if you will. Let me build as efficient software. And to do that, you need to understand every single black box you encounter. And that's the fun part I enjoy exploring. Opening these boxes, what is inside this thing? What is really inside of that? Like yesterday evening, I was really diving deep into how the operating system, in particular, not the OS, but the CPU, actually reads data from the RAM. And I learned something that I never learned before, which is that if you want to read something from the memory, you give it a virtual address. You say, all right, I want to read this number somewhere in my memory, and it's an address 1000. Right? That 1000 doesn't really exist in physical memory. Right? It's something the operating system exposes to the user. So you need to translate the 1000 to a physical address in memory, because the memory is just so big, right? So the 1000 becomes a 900,001 713, byte. That's where it is in real life. So that's the first translation layer. Then I learned, which is just recently, that even that number, the 900,000, is also doesn't mean anything to the RAM. That gets translated to, which slot of the RAM do you mean? Because we have 4 slots. DIMMs, they are called, DIMM. Well, that number, there's one bit on it that tells you, oh, this is actually the fourth slot. Well, now I'm the fourth slot, I'm in this RAM. It's actually this chip over there, the first chip, and it's this bank, which is a collection of cells, this row and this cell. All of this is encoded in this physical, address, which is something I recently learned. And all of this is done by the CPU.
That's amazing.
So I absolutely love to go in deep inside this, and I understand why did people build it this way. It's like, that is why. This is what inspires me.
You're the quintessential example of curiosity.
I suppose.
You're curious about everything. You really are.
I don't know about everything. Like my car broke this morning, and I have no clue why. And I'm not interested one bit to know why.
Well, there's a mechanic somewhere who is curious about that, though. He'll take care of you.
Absolutely. See, Melissa, you're right. A mechanic will come to this and come to my car, and his eyes will light up and says, "Wow, this is actually an interesting problem." Like, why did the engine goes on? What happened here?
So we're over here like, let me give you some money and fix it for me so that I can go be curious about GIS stuff over here and computer stuff, right?
Yeah, I think it's time to sell that car. It served me for a good 8 years.
It might be time. It might be time.
It might be time.
Well, what would you like to add? What would you like to kind of close out with today? I want to open the floor to you since I've been asking all the questions. What would you like to kind of leave the listeners on a note of thought today?
Be curious about what really inspires curiosity in you. Mm-hmm. Don't force anything. Don't judge ideas. Don't ask what is in it for you. And even as you're listening to my words, like, just do it and go. And there's some sort of a command there, but it's not really not what I meant. But when you feel something, a curious feeling in you or interest, try to pursue it with no judgment, and don't ask like what isn't really in it for me. And things, because at the end of the day, whatever you pick, right? It won't change that ultimate goal, because whether you pick it or not, the only thing you will miss out is opportunities. And I'm not saying that opportunities are good for you or bad for you. It's just opportunities. We're here to live life to the fullest, and every time you open a box, you get an exciting thing. And you might choose to, you know what, I'm just gonna sit down. I'm not gonna open any more boxes. I'm happy, and that's fine too, right? Mm-hmm. But if the curiosity does come, give it a chance. That's all what I ask. I think I will leave you with that thought.
I think that's amazing. I think that's incredible. Last final thoughts from Hussein too. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa.
You've had such good things to talk about. I knew you would be super interesting, and you'd be a great guest on the podcast. So I appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
So, thank you. Appreciate
you.
Gold. This conversation was pure gold. What I enjoyed the most about interviewing Hussein was the insight he applied to answering my questions. He explored some unexpected but important topics like staying curious, saying yes to opportunities, and trying new things. I feel like everyone who listens will be able to connect and resonate with his message. He has an incredible energy and a passion for his work that really comes through during our conversation. Check him out on LinkedIn and YouTube as he regularly posts helpful content for developers of all technical levels. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and discussion. Please join us again for our next episode of Geospatial Experiences. That wraps up today's episode. Please feel free to reach out with your comments, or if you have an interesting topic that you would like to hear, please let us know. Thanks again for your time, and tune in for our next podcast.